Right now, we want to bring in our political analyst, Trip Yang. He's joining us here on Newsroom Live. Hi, Trip. How are you?
Hey, thank
Hey,
you so much for having me.
it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Earlier, we were discussing the headline here on Newsroom Live that Mayor Mamdani made a surprise trip to the White House, to Washington, D.C. We're calling it a surprise because it was not on the mayor's agenda. Now, we're hearing, as you probably already know, that's why you're joining us, that the conversation that he was having with the president was around a housing project. But I got to ask you first, why would this meeting not be on the public agenda for the press to be aware of? Is that unusual?
So I'll say this. Sometimes this is a strategic decision by the mayor's team or the president's team. I am hypothesizing here, of course, based on how they think they can handle the meeting most constructively.
Mm.
It is sometimes a team decision or a personal decision for how they communicate these things. Of course, anything that deals with the president and anything that deals with a meeting between the mayor and the president generates a lot of headlines locally and nationally.
Hmm.
So sometimes maybe you want to prevent leaks from happening. For example, but this is something that's a fairly subjective decision that's made. What I will say is this: as a New Yorker, I love the fact that the bromance between Donald Trump and Zora Mamdani continues, and here's why. So much of New York City is dependent on the federal government.
Hmm.
For example, right now, the mayor's proposed budget is 127 billion for city services for us as a city of over 8.4 million New Yorkers. Over 7 billion of that is dependent on the federal government to help fund law enforcement, transportation, housing, for example, here in New York City. So the relationship between the mayor and the president is very, very important.
Hmm.
In addition, it wasn't that long ago during the campaign where Donald Trump threatened to withhold this federal funding as well as to send ICE agents over to New York City because he thought that a so-called he called Mamdani a communist, candidate for mayor would
Hmm.
lead to disorder in the streets. Obviously, Mayor Mamdani is not a communist, and New York City has been relatively safe these first 2 months. But this is another example why having a great relationship between the mayor and the president is so critically important.
Yeah, of course, we want governments to be able to work together in any city, but New York City, to your point, it's crucial because of the population, the position of New York City in the U.S., the position of New York City as a city worldwide. And obviously, we want our mayor to be on good terms with the president. We did have some discussion in the newsroom. It is clear that this is a warmer relationship than when this all started. Now, granted, they probably didn't know each other well, but it seems that they're talking. This is Mandani's second visit to the White House now.
Yeah, it's remarkable how Donald Trump has been on the national and international stage now of politics for over a decade. And yet it seems like Zohran Mamdani is still his favorite Democrat, and he just barely knows the guy. And so, look,
I'm not chuckling.
I
I'm not
am.
chuckling at what you're saying. I'm chuckling because we're looking at these images that we got to get to because we keep showing them, and we just got to segue really, really quick. These images that we know Mayor Mandani brought to the White House of the faux daily news covers. I mean, what do you make of that? They ended up on social media. The Mandani administration put them out. I mean, what? I'm just chuckling because I don't. Can you break this down for us tonight?
So, City Hall staff brought images of a. Obviously, this is made in terms of a jest, and
Yeah,
this is a good faith joke
right.
that clearly landed with the president. The president Trump was beaming about how
He's smiling
um,
cheek to cheek in this
right,
picture. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. He really looks like he's having a ball with his best buddy Zohran Mamdani. But look, President Trump seemed like he was beaming with the images of a fake New York Daily News headline that says Trump told the city we're going to build.
Mm.
And this is, of course, a reference to the mayor's likely attempt at getting the federal government to help subsidize and help fund affordable housing. This is likely about the Sunnyside Yards development which was first introduced in the Bill de Blasio mayoral administration. It would create over 12,000 affordable housing
Hmm.
units in that part of Queens. And for a lot of urban developers here in New York City, it has been a long held dream to build such large scale affordable housing units. Of course, this is a massive multi-billion-dollar project. It was introduced around 6 years ago when De Blasio was mayor, and so federal funding is obviously something that is required. But
Right.
outside of the policy, let's talk about the psychology of this. Zohran Mamdani clearly knows how to cajole Donald Trump and
Hmm.
get in his good graces. Uh, this matters for policy, and it matters in ways that extend beyond a potential federal investment in housing. Earlier this morning, there was a Columbia University student where ICE agents detained
Hmm.
her. It
Yep.
was reported that ICE agents uh, you know, mischaracterized their intent to Columbia University's
Yeah, we're
campus
following that
security.
headline trip. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so Mamdani directly brought up that incident
Yeah.
in his meeting with President Trump earlier today, and it resulted in that Columbia University student being successfully released. So a strong relationship between the mayor and the president matters a lot
Yeah.
for the well-being of New York City and the constituents here. And one of the final things I'll say is this: so many Democrats make the mistake of getting into a contest, a rivalry, a so-called political male measuring contest with President Trump. It never ends well. Mamdani clearly has found a way to really, jive well with President Trump. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you support Trump or not, this is clearly something that's beneficial for the city of New York.
And to your point, Mayor Mamdani is a new mayor. Mayor Mamdani has expressed repeatedly throughout his campaign, and now every time we hear him talk, really, I mean, maybe I'm being overly generous with every time, but he's expressed repeatedly his love for New York City. And the President Trump, has ties to New York City. So there is an interest, I guess, even personally, in them getting along from the president's standpoint. He's always expressed an interest in New York City thriving. And from Mamdani's standpoint, New York City must thrive underneath him because, I mean, if he wants to, stay in good favor and maybe have a longer political career. But I mean, nevertheless, you mentioned how good it is for New Yorkers that they seem to get along. And there's various reasons why they could get along, including a love for this city.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Zohran Mamdani and Donald Trump, they look like longtime BFFs. I could just see them hanging it out at the Garden over a Knicks game or at City Field eating hot dogs together at a Mets game. They just look like best buds out there. And
Wow.
look, on a serious note, here in New York, we need the federal government to take our city's concerns seriously. Donald Trump and Zohran Mamdani are Queens boys. Trump clearly came from the New York City world. Before he got into politics, him and his father, they were real estate developers, first in Queens, and then they did, larger scale developments in Manhattan. A lot of them had, of course, government regulations, government subsidies. So Trump is very familiar with how New York City government works. Mamdani, to his credit, is really jiving well with Donald Trump, really appealing to Trump's inner New Yorker. Trump may live in DC or Mar-a-Lago, but he's always a New Yorker, a Queens boy at heart. And Mamdani is tapping into that chemistry brilliantly.
So this housing project that was the matter of discussion today, 12,000 units. We don't know exactly where, maybe Queens, who knows? But the point of it is, or the point I'm looking for you to clarify, rather, if you could, when do you think we'll learn more information about this? So, if Mamdani went to the president to talk about this, and we also are reporting that this stemmed from a conversation they had when Mamdani was with the president in DC in November, do we expect to learn more about this project? Like you said, it would need federal backing.
I anticipate we'll know a lot more details in the coming days,
Okay.
simply because every time the mayor and the president meet, this is their second meeting in the Oval Office. It generates an enormous amount of local, national, and international
Oh, yeah,
news.
everyone's
There will be
buzzing
so
about it.
much media attention. over it. So I expect details about it to be released, in the forthcoming days.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a talker for sure. A talker in our newsroom, a talker, I'm sure, on social media after those images were released on social media. Sign of the times, though, that we're jesting and finding out about meetings on social media first. I'm sure some New Yorkers, that's where they first heard about this meeting, Mamdani meeting with the president in the Oval Office. Sign of the times, right?
Yeah, it's look, information is communicated differently these days. A lot of times we find out from social media, sometimes we find out through traditional media outlets. I'll say this, at the end of the day, it is about, can you be effective? That's really what we want our public leaders to be.
Yep.
Regardless of their party status, regardless of labels, can the mayor of New York effectively advocate for the interests of over 8.4 million New Yorkers?
Mm-hmm.
In previous years, the White House and the mayor of New York have not always had a great relationship. President Trump in his first term did not seem to respect Mayor de Blasio very much. Eric Adams had it actually a very acrimonious relationship with the Biden White House, despite the fact they were both Democrats. And then Eric Adams, of course, has his own nuanced relationship with President Trump. This is the rare instance where it seems like the mayor and a president actually have a great relationship. I would say it's been over 2 decades since, at the time, it was Republican President George W. Bush, and at the time there was Democrat turned Republican mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg. Of course, he later became an independent, later became a Democrat, but at the time, 2 decades earlier, Bloomberg and Bush seemed to have a great relationship, and it's been about 2 decades, truly, when we've seen a president and a mayor have a good relationship. The shocker is that Mamdani and Trump, on the surface level, seem to not share a lot of similar characteristics. Trump's a conservative Republican, and Mamdani's a democratic socialist. They feuded a lot during the course of the campaign. Of course, it was reported that Trump, favored Andrew Cuomo in the mayor's race. But look, at the end of the day, if you are a New Yorker and someone else is a New Yorker, you can get along. You don't always have to agree on political differences. Old school New Yorkers tend to, get along with new school New Yorkers as well.
Look, we all love this city, so this is good to see. And as you said, we'll see what comes of this. Our political strategist, Trip Yang, thanks for being with us, Trip. We always appreciate you here in the Fox 5 newsroom and here on Newsroom Live. It's great to talk to you tonight.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thanks, Trip. Bye.